Webinars are hot. As a content marketing professional, I've produced hundreds of videos for social and traditional media platforms and currently work with one of the largest podcast networks in the country. So for me, understanding how webinars work in the B2B space is both essential to my professional development and an exciting form of content creation. According to a study commissioned by digital agency Demandwave, 41% of B2B marketers cite webinars as the best marketing tactic for driving revenue. I've set out to discuss webinars with one of the foremost experts in the field, Matt Lay, president of the streaming network in Toronto. Together, we've created this multi-part series of videos and podcasts, the webinar Lessons from the Front Line, or How I Learned to Live with Never Getting a Second Chance with Live Virtual Events. Welcome back to LFTF. We are sitting here on the in the hotel room overlooking this lovely beach, and we're talking about personalization.
We're talking about personalization, and waiting to go on that beach and have a drink.
Yes, I can hardly wait. It's just sitting there. It's beckoning us. It's a little overcast, but I still think it's going to be quite lovely out there when we finally get there. One of the things we were talking about, and I think sort of central to this, to the whole notion of personalization, is building personas. That's kind of key to the whole thing, right? Large enterprise businesses have hundreds of personas. Small operations like Tucker has one persona, right? We as an organization have a handful. So, which leads me to ask the question: what do you need? What do you need to be thinking about in terms of personalization? What do you personalize for?
Yeah, I mean, it's the most, well, I think you should personalize for as much as you can. And I say that with I think that if we could all give our, I said at the top of the last one, I'll say it again, if we could all give our customers that Google experience where they get to our website and we know everything about them, so we give them exactly how they like to consume it, what they're looking for and all of that, we would, but we can't. And more, so I think that you do for what you can, and you got to look at what you've got and where it matters. If you are doing content for everyone, it's high level and it's really for no one. It's no one person. So you want to start by, at minimum, ensuring that you've got different content for your different buyers' personas, whether that be your verticals or the type of buyer that's involved in the decision-making process. If you have a fairly simple buyer, or your value proposition is called, you know what, in B2B, people are talking webinars. I don't think anyone's simple. There's a reason why you do webinars. It's because you cannot, basically sell a product with a credit card and do whatever. So I think that everyone here gets that they've got multiple people in the buying cycle, or buyer's decision, and they're dealing with different verticals or users that have different needs. And you got to start by ensuring that you've got some content around that. Right,
and breaking it down accordingly.
Yeah, and so getting good at being able to create content that way I think is important. Coming up with strategies to make it easy when you've got a new thing happening. How do you create the pieces of content without reinventing the wheel? So that is important. On the flip side, how good is your data? Now, there's some small companies out there, we don't happen to be one of them, but there's some small companies out there that have been great with data from day one because they've known the importance of it. And they can segment it down to all kinds of different levels. And if you're able to do that, then you are able to go directly into deep personalization. So I think you should personalize as much as you can, basically.
In terms of the tech, like if you need data, you need the technology, right? Like that's sort of part of it. Pulling, like what do you need?
Well, I mean, if you've got the content, let's just assume you've got content that you can reach.
Sure.
If you've got a CRM that's packed, like with the information that you need, a good tracking, a good discipline by your sales force of understanding where people are in sort of the journey and up-to-date information, and a marketing automation system, I think that's enough to start personalization, right? So you can easily segregate everyone with an @oracle.com email address and start campaigning to them with content that makes sense for what's going on in that. You can easily pull the names and the emails of people who are, at the perceived to be at the decision-making stage or evaluation stage, and because they've got a demo of your platform, or they've got a proposal in front of them by a sales rep, and you know what content you want to have in front of them at that point in time. And because you've got a marketing automation platform integrated, you also kind of know what content they've already consumed, so you can send them stuff that they haven't. So you can start, I think, with that. Right. That's more segmentation, not all that personalized, but that is a start. The tools that are out there, like Drift, that are meant for deep personalization or account-based marketing stuff, they make it easier. Just like I say to everyone, every tip we give you about webinars, on our better webinars, as we used to call them, or on this thing or whatever, can be done with any tool out there. A bunch of free ones mashed together could do it probably. It's just going to be a lot easier with our platform generally, right? Same thing with all of this tech. It is way better than not having it.
Right.
Whether or not it's worth the dollars to you that's not my call, but it's way better than not having it. It'll make it a lot easier for you. So I think you got to figure out where you're at and make a plan for it, right? I think we've all had to take a long, hard look at ourselves and understand that as marketing has become so much more important, I know we have, and realize that, we got to get our data game tighter. We got to get our content game, more diversified. Yep. We can't be so broad-based with everything that we do, and then go out and make a plan to kind of do it. And you can't, and so CRM, marketing automation is a bare minimum, and then from there, you can look at what other little tidbits you're able to add in, I think.
A good webinar platform obviously helps. You do a good webinar program, even if it's not a targeted one, you can start.
Yeah, I don't want to make it a sales pitch.
No, I'm just saying, it's like those are the other sorts of things, right?
I mean...
This is all a sales pitch. We're doing a podcast
about
webinars.
It's thought leadership, Pete. You've told me this many times, but okay. Let's talk about that for a second.
Okay.
Right? Yes, in this case, all the stuff we've been talking about around personalization, you literally cannot do with GoToWebinar. Sorry, guys. Like you literally cannot. And that's not about the data or the integration side. It's just about the way that the tool is structured. Yeah. Is that you cannot take a webinar you ran yesterday, rebrand it up, get it out to this person, change it in the ways that you can with the tool we offer, which I won't say the name, or a bunch of other tools that are out there that are more expensive than GoToWebinar. Yeah. Right? So a lot of the stuff that we're saying you can look to do there, and you know what, I should say you can't. I am always impressed with what people are able to do with that tool, with the right mindset and the right technology around it.
You need other pieces of technology, yeah.
But I mean, it's not like what we're talking about. Yeah. Like click a button and get it out to this group and do whatever.
And know what everybody's doing and all that other sort of
stuff. And isn't that what all marketing technology is? Is generally a way for us to do the things that we need to do it en masse. So if we want to personalize content or create an account-based marketing system, we want a tool that allows us to do it very easily and very quickly. Right. When Microsoft recognized the difference, keep going back to that use case, but they recognized what was going on only when they deployed Marketo and the Elite Webinar platform together. And they're like, oh, that's why they went from 200 to 4,000 webinars. Right. It wasn't that I don't think it had to do with it. Well, it had to do with how easy it was to produce, how easy it was to enact their strategy. But it started off by saying, oh my God, we need to be doing more of these webinars in this way. And this is how we're going to do it. Right. And they could have done that in their old tool, or any tool that they make for that matter. Right. So technology does have a lot to play in getting super personal, but you can have all the technology in the world if you don't have the data right or any sort of content or anything to say to these people. Yeah. That doesn't matter. Yeah. Right. So you gotta put your order of operations in there. And
at the end of the day, it's still the persona that you're building around your client is kind of core to the whole thing. The technology obviously helps build it, but if you need to know who your buyer is and what they need to know and what you're trying to tell them and all those other things. Yeah. Let's talk about webinars and how webinars fit into this whole paradigm, because that's sort of the meat of we've talked a little bit about it. We talked about it in the last episode as well. But let's get into how does this work in the world of webinars?
Quite simple. So for live, it's about hitting them with the right message at the right time. The same webinars that always perform well for people at whatever stage of the buyer's journey. You want to make sure that people who are at that stage are getting invited to that webinar, whether it's live or it's on demand. That's the content you want them to see. And so basically customizing when someone's invited to what type of webinar is how you start that process. When creating a webinar around account-based marketing or creating a webinar around any of this, like if today we were doing this about even what we're doing today goes against this, right? I'm talking about throwing out financial services, I'm throwing out this, I'm throwing out that, right? But if I was really committed to this, we would be doing this, and if I actually knew the answers to the questions, because I don't, we would actually be talking about personalization for financial services, legal, life science, and technology, our 4 pillars of our business. And we would have points and stats on it. We don't. This is new. I'm not by any stretch an expert on personalization. I am seeing how my customers are utilizing it for webinars. But that's how I would do it. Now I would produce all of that content at one point in time so that I was able to ensure that as I was going out, I had this piece for each of my various personas that are in it. So so webinars fit there, and then the other thing is that on demand, right? So when creating a customized content experience for a persona or a company or anything that you're doing from a personalization perspective, the webinar is a great thing to have in there just simply due to the time invested in watching one and the general knowledge that that person is vested in you and your offering. And so they're always, I've never seen a ABM-based content experience that does not have a webinar in some capacity in it.
Right.
This is the easiest thing to kind of do. And then finally, this way we do things is to create our good content, we think, right? Video,
I like it.
It's high quality and it's all of that. But generally speaking, most people think of a webinar, and it's true, it's easy to create. It's a PowerPoint, it's you dial in or you turn on your webcam or whatever it is and you're creating it. So as you start talking about creating personalized content, what's easier to do than that? You're not booking a studio, you're not writing anything, you're just going, basically. And it's a presentation that you've probably given a bunch of times on the as a salesperson or whoever it might be. So it can fuel it because it's an easy content creation tool, right? So wherever your gaps are, you can use your webinar to fill those gaps and really go get customized within it.
Right. Excellent. Let's talk about some real world examples.
Sure.
What sorts of real world examples can you point to when we're talking about this sort of stuff?
As it relates to webinars and that sort of thing, I can actually I will use a financial services, which is weird. Don't usually have the relevant one, but a company that manufactures mutual funds who's got a couple key distribution channels. And so they run a webinar with a thought leader, and whenever they run it with different branding on it, different times for different distribution channels, because there's a slightly different message at the end. I forget what the reason for it is, but they do it, and they put that person's logo front and center, and the thought leader only gets to speak once, and it's been something they've been doing for a very long time. And so they're customizing their content experience for their various channels for many reasons, but they've been doing it, and we've been part of that for some time, and seen that sort of spread out as well, where when it's on demand and people are coming to get content from them, because their distribution channels are like really big. Well, they're like wholesalers, right? They're like really big customers. And so when they're coming in to get there, they have some say, and we don't want our people seeing this. And so they've started to create the experiences for these massive channels when they come in and grab their content, and that includes branding, type of content, and really the messaging they want to have in front of those people.
Right.
And so oftentimes when we've been involved in personalization, I think it's been done, like everything, it's done because it's needed. And now that that has been going on for years, now what we're seeing is that basically as it's becoming more of a forefront of marketing, is that the tool itself is really easy to be a part of that. So what I mean is it's easy to reskin, it's easy to rebrand, it's easy to slightly change what it is that someone is seeing. And so some real world examples of that are companies that will run a webinar through different like publications, right? The same one will go out like 7 different places. Mm-hmm. So one piece of content, one message, and they keep driving leads on it. It's more of a repurpose than it is a personalization.
Although targeted to each
yes.
group, right?
Yeah, exactly. Targeted to each group. And then the personalized experience side of it is the big one, where content hubs and content experiences with webinars and clips from webinars are being developed for companies and for everyone within the platform now, and that's what we're getting asked more and more and more about. And what was neat and fun was, seeing this, and we were at Webinar World, and understanding that because we sit behind the marketing automation tool quite often, or the CRM, so that data is all there. So when you register, because people who come to webinars are generally known to that person in some capacity, they've been invited, right? When you come in, now that we know that, what can we do? We can launch a different webinar for you and for me because we're at different points in the buyer's journey, or we're at different levels of seniority, or you're in this industry and I'm in that industry. So we can do a broadcast or a marketing piece on data and a data-driven webinar success stories, and you can see something that's completely different than what I can see.
Right.
The calls to action, the resources, whatever's involved could be completely different as well. So I think that what you're going to find is, as your own personalization needs grow, and as you're looking to provide personalized experiences, is that you are going to end up at the webinar anyways, because it's an easy way of doing it, and it actually has built into it this ability that a lot of the other tools maybe don't have. Right.
Interesting. If you're, and this is great, if you've got a lot of content, if you've got a decent amount of content, you know who you're targeting, and have built around that, the path is clear, and the way you've described has been, very, very well articulated. If you're a person just starting out, if you're a business just starting out, like, how do you start? Where would you start on personalization? What's the first steps you take?
I don't know. I mean, I think that you, with anything that you're doing, you want to start with where the money is, right? So if you've got a product that speaks broad-based and everyone can use it, but you know that, technology companies are your bread and butter, you start personalizing content for technology companies. You start creating a vertical practice. That's what happened within our organization with financial services. Before we did any other vertical, we did that because we had a practice emerging, we had revenue, we had a rep that was focused on it, and that's why we started doing, basically personalized content for a section of the Canadian financial services market. As a result, we, have, gained like 85% of that market, and are taking those learnings and moving them into other verticals, which has worked really well for us now because the technology has advanced in such a way. So I would start by personalizing where you think the money is, or where you want to be, and depending on how just starting out you are, I mean, that's an interesting question too, about content comes first or whatever it might be. But that's where I would definitely start.
So pick your vertical, pick your persona, start to create content for that person.
So you've got your base content, and then that person's content, and then from there, as you get into it, like anything, it gets easier, right? You start flexing that muscle, you start learning the machine like we've learned, and it gets easier to create the content and deliver the content the more that you do it.
Right. In terms of the things you need, and this is the last question, but the things you need to get started. I mean, obviously, you need to be able to build a persona. You need to have done some reading and some research. How do you get started? What sorts of things do you need?
Well, you need to know who it is that you're going after. You need to be able to identify them in some capacity within your CRM or in lists, I guess, that you acquire, or in your advertising or whatever it might be. You need content that speaks to them, and that content can be the the language, put pieces in front of them. And you need to understand, your delivery mechanism and what is going to be the best for it, right? And so sometimes, it's all advertising based, right? You're trying to get in front of people that you can't get in front of on your own. In other cases, it's based around your existing data. So there are a few things that kind of are required, but we all got to remember, 10 years ago, almost none of us had a clean database or much of a database to speak of. None of us had a marketing automation platform, really. We had an email platform, and none of us were talking about this level of personalization. We're trying to figure out how to automate the personalization that was happening by the salespeople and by the people that were front of house. So we've gone full circle now. We know how to do it. Whether or not you're getting started or not, you know how to personalize. you were doing it before all of this,
Right.
right? So go back, remember that, think about that, and then look at what tools you have to kind of work that back in.
Right. Very good. We did it in 20 minutes.
We did it in 20 minutes.
Matt, thank you so much.
Thank you,
This
Peter.
has been, I believe this would have been episode 14.
14.
This is 14.
Wow.
Yeah. Lessons from the front line, or as we like to call it, LFTF.
Thanks so
been
much,
a great conversation once again around personalization. Part 1 is also online, and that is that. That is the world of webinars as we see it.
Go get a drink.
Let's go get a drink.